Did you miss your deadline to renew your Medicaid coverage? You can still send your completed annual review form to Healthy Connections Medicaid. You may be assigned to another health plan, but you can ask to come back to First Choice within 60 days of renewed Medicaid eligibility. It's your family. It's your choice. First Choice is the right choice. Renew and choose us. Visit selecthealthofsc.com/renew to learn more.
Okay, and I am starting the webinar. That means people can start joining in and I will also go to Facebook and make it live, and give me a second as people join in slowly. Okay. Yeah. Okay, what I'm going to do is, as I think we have people coming in, which is great. Yeah.
I don't know. How can I tell if they're in? I can't see if they're in here.
No, it is. If we don't see them. This is a webinar format, but they can see us. They can see us, sir. Okay. Live on Facebook. I'm using that, and I am sharing on the page. And yeah, I mean, we will start in a minute. All looks fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining. I mean, it must be a busy day for you.
Yes.
And yeah, it's 9 o'clock. But give me a minute to set up the live feed. I've done it, but then for some reason it went that maybe we were just waiting for too long. But yeah, I'm gonna do it.
No worries.
And for the audience, just bear with us for a second, and then our webinar will start soon. And as I said, a recording will be available, Sean, and then the audio format will be shared on multiple platforms like Spotify and SoundCloud and many more. Many more. Okay, now, yeah, the live link is set up. I love technology, you know. I mean, it just.
Me too.
I mean, these integrations, you just, if you know which buttons to click, they can take you to so many places, and I am so in love with it. Okay, this session is recorded. We are live on multiple pages of Facebook. Welcome, Mr. Sean Hopwood.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here, Umit.
The pleasure is all mine, sir. Well, you know, we've been doing podcasts and video casts for a while, for a few years, but last year our podcast jumped. You know, we had thousands of viewers on audio and over 100,000 viewers on YouTube. And then
That's amazing.
and I think people are at home, maybe they are bored, or maybe they find some of our content interesting.
Yes.
Here I am, and I look forward to your insights on making online meetings a great experience. I mean, Sean, your company, you've been managing remote teams for over 15 years.
Yes.
So, how is it like? I mean, you have so many people like me. I think you manage hundreds of languages and hundreds of people in different locations. So tell us about it.
Definitely. Well, yeah, our company actually started as an online business. Some people are a little bit antisocial. Maybe I was a little bit antisocial at the time that I started the company. I'm not like that anymore. I've become a lot more gregarious, but also it allows you to get a lot of work done. You don't have to just sift through, all the different issues that you would have to in when you're working in an office. You don't have to get dressed. You don't have to take the time to pick out your clothes. You don't have to fill your car up with gas. All these other things, plus, finding parking, all these things that people maybe not, take for granted now that they're working from home. These are some wonderful things. There are some things that you do have to do whenever you are working from home, which I think is important. It's going to be it's going to get easier and easier, but you have to tell your friends and family, that I work from home. I might be at home, but that doesn't mean I'm not doing anything, it doesn't mean I'm lazy. I just work from home, and you have to explain that. And actually, there's something I did with our human resource department. We prepared a letter for all of our new employees to send to their friends and family, and it says something to that extent. It says, "I work from home, but this is a very serious job. I have a 1 hour break in between, and I would please understand that. Please don't contact me unless it's an emergency." And they can kind of tailor the letter however they want, but we made a template for them. So all these little things you got to think about when working from home, and we like to pride ourselves on the details. So we've learned that in the 15 years of doing business.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, you said you made a template, and did you say that like there is 1 hour break? I think you are referring to you have kind of working hours, although people work remotely. So how many hours a day do they work?
8 hours a day with a 1 hour break. But we have a little bit, we've kind of tried to get a little bit more innovative with things. And I've done some research. We offer 6 hour days to people who want to work 6 hour days. Some people feel more productive with 6 hours. Some people feel more productive with 8 hours. So it depends. But yeah, that's the time. And regarding the breaks, yeah, some people do feel like if you're working from home, they can do what they want when they want. That's something that we don't endorse that so much, because I really believe that professionalism is still important and structure is important. If you're a freelancer, maybe doing some designs on your own, yeah, that's understandable. You can work on your own hours. But if you have to be there, for example, to answer phones for clients, you have to be there at a specific time. So we do require our employees to be there at a specific time, and we try to create a structure for them. So we also, by that same token, when they're off the clock, we have a strict policy never to contact them. And there's all these things that I've learned and experienced with all my years of working for other companies. I've worked at grocery stores, I've worked at car washes, I've worked at fast food restaurants. And in some of these other corporations, they contact, they have little groups, WhatsApp groups and everything like that, where they contact each other after work. That's stressful. My slogan here is Day Translations. We want to be number 3 in your life. Number 1 is your health. Number 2 is your family. Number 3 is Day Translations. So these are the things that,
cool.
Yeah. And it's funny because I want people to understand we don't want to, we're not number 1. People care about their careers, but they also need to care about family time. And so that makes people more productive when they come back, because they're not like basically working around the clock. So,
talking about around the clock, I mean, and when people meet online, there are different time zones. How do you manage different time zones?
Well, that's one thing that we've learned, and I've learned. I started the company all by myself, and I was doing Spanish translations, and we started to get a lot of calls, and I would get calls at 3 a.m. And with all the marketing and SEO that we did for the website, well, at that time it was just me, but that I did for the website, we would get calls from like Poland and Spain and the Emirates, and I would just pick up and act like I was awake. I was like, "Hello, how are you?" And so I realized at that moment, like, even if I do hire a lot of people, I want them to be hired around the clock. So we definitely have people around the clock. We have people in the West Coast of the United States, all along Central America, which is 2 hours ahead of us. We have people in the United States. We have people in Europe, Spain, and France and Italy, and then other countries in Europe too. And then we have people in Turkey, Egypt, in that time zone, and then we have people in Japan and Philippines and China and India. So when you have that around the clock work, you're never forcing someone to live an unorthodox life. You're allowing that person to live a normal life, just passing the baton. And that's what we call it. You're basically racing. And as soon as your shift is off, you're gone. You pass the baton to the next person. So when you're done with work, you don't have to worry about anything. And when you come back to work, you don't have a bunch of work piled up because the person who was working all night is working for you. So you never get behind on work. And I think that really reduces stress.
Well, I couldn't agree more. But then, how do you celebrate an event? For example, I mean, Christmas. I mean, if people are all distributed,
Yeah.
to different parts of the world.
Yeah, we definitely, and that's a really cool thing about having all these cultures and different people. We celebrate everybody's events. For example, for Christmas, I am a little bit of a workaholic, so I I don't request people to be there. But we have two Christmas parties, one during the day and one during the Eastern Hemisphere's daytime.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll have a Christmas party, and it's usually an online party. There's software now. It's not very extremely developed right now, but there are softwares out there where people can have Christmas parties together. But we'll have one during the daytime, and we'll have discussions. We'll talk about our hobbies. We'll talk about things. We'll try to avoid talking about work as much as possible. But everyone in my company is very passionate about languages, so we always end up talking about languages. But we have another party during the night shift.
Why not record it and stream it? But why do you have two parties? What is the difference?
Well, I think that the obvious thing that a lot of people would think of is if you record something and send that to them, that means, okay, this person did not have the time to even, take the time to speak to me personally. They just record it and send it to me. There's a lot of times where it's very impractical to speak to people individually. So you have to use technology as much as you can and pre-record things, like training material. I do that a lot. But when it comes time to bring out the humanity and show people that you really do care about them, it's important to make a human connection. And that involves a lot of things: the way you elocute, the way you speak to them, the way you interact, your facial reaction to what they say. That's important. And in an online world, where a lot of times people are losing that human interaction and humanity, I try to keep that as much as possible. I tell everyone, we'll let the technology do what they do best, and then let the humans do the rest. So, that's what I do. So I do definitely think it's important to show people that they matter.
Yeah, I mean, I love that phrase.
Yeah.
Let the technology work, and then let humans do the rest. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. But then, I mean, you said you record trainings. So what would you say is the balance between synchronous and asynchronous communication? I'm asking this because I know a lot of corporations are in the belief, in my opinion, a false belief that they have to bring everyone to an online meeting, as much as possible. So what is that, balance? How much synchronized should we get with our remote teams or clients?
It's a very good point. And I think that it should be, I don't know, if I like to be very concrete in the things I say. I think it should be 10% of your time. Synchronous meetings should be maybe 10%. The rest can be done by email, text communication, Slack communications, and stuff like that. I think that it's not practical if, let's say, you're a huge corporation with 10,000 employees, to just speak to every single employee and tell them, hey, you're appreciated. It's hard, and you would just exhaust yourself. So it's important. Even when I used to be I was a waiter at a restaurant for 4 years. They didn't even train us. They just made us watch a training video when we learned how to serve the tables. Like, just don't drop the pancakes on your clients. And I did. I dropped the pancakes on my clients. So I didn't watch the training video pretty well enough. But yeah, I love being a waiter. It's a constant movement. But I just think, even like in my neighborhood, we had a neighborhood association, and it shut down last year because of the pandemic. And I kept saying to them, why does it need to shut down? Just create a WhatsApp group, create a group on Telegram, or create a group on Slack, or create a group on Facebook, and just say, hey, I think that the plants need to be cut this weekend. And that's it. Like, why do you need to have this huge conversation about one item? It's really unnecessary. And I've read a lot about, and I've watched a lot of things that Mark Cuban says. He's a billionaire in the United States from Texas. And he says the same thing. He says there's no need for meetings at all. And I kind of believe, I agree with him in a way. So if you can get people who work with you on that same level, then you can be extremely productive. But if you have half the people that saying we need meetings, and then the other half saying just send an email and get it done, then there's going to be a clash there. So you need to start from when you're hiring, and hire the type of people who prefer to communicate with quick messages. And 10% of the time, when you really need to meet and talk, then have the talk. And that also creates a little bit of warmth and a human connection, and makes people feel appreciated. So yeah, I would say 10% of the time should be real meetings.
No,
that's just a made up number.
No, I mean I will say 20, 80, but yeah. I'm afraid a lot of corporations are doing the opposite. How about just sending a video message instead of meeting? For example, you got a client, they ask for some product or service. For example, they ask for your community interpreting app. Is it more practical just to send the client, okay, do you want to watch this video? Or maybe record a personal video, say, hi, Sarah, thank you for your email. I made this quick video for you to describe our product. And if you want to talk about it, I'm always available.
Do
you think this will work?
I think it definitely works. And I think it's working more and more, that idea, because I just did it today. I called one of my managers at my company, and she wasn't available to talk. And I knew I would not be available later. So I just recorded a presentation for her. It was like 4 minutes long. I just recorded everything I wanted to say. She listened to it when she got time, but I can't talk now. And so it just makes sense. People are kind of living their lives in a stream of consciousness. They're not living in little blocks where they, some people do plan a lot. But I mean, when you work, you're just constantly living in a linear way. And if you break up someone's work, or you break up their plan, then, or the way their stream of work, then it could, it interrupts something very important for them. So definitely you could record something for them, and when they get the time, they can watch it. And I think that even applies to clients. You could be speaking to a client, and you say, hey, I really want you to use our product. And they're like, well, I can't, I have meetings all day. But if you record it for them, and when they get a chance and they're done with all their work, or right after their lunch break, they can watch it. And I think a lot of people prefer that. And there are a lot of people, antisocial people, and so they prefer just to watch the video. So yeah. I definitely think it's more and more important every day.
Yeah. I mean, we recently, I want to share an anecdote from our business. We recently received a request. It's a global corporation. They have a global training agenda, but then 90% of the content is pre-recorded, but then they want to hire us to interpret for them 15 minutes a day for feedback.
Okay. All right.
because the rest is pretty much automated. And I couldn't believe it. And I thought, oh, this is the type of guy I like. Instead of, forcing the employees to sit together, like 1,000 of them in different locations and watch somebody's presentation, they record it and in small bits, like 10 minutes chapters, 15 minutes chapters, and quizzes in between. And then they have feedback weeks. Yeah. This week they have 3 days. Next week they have another 3 days. And employees, they book a feedback, 15 minutes feedback time with or without interpretation.
Yeah.
Did you miss your deadline to renew your Medicaid coverage? You can still send your completed annual review form to Healthy Connections Medicaid. You may be assigned to another health plan, But you can ask to come back to First Choice within 60 days of renewed Medicaid eligibility. It's your family. It's your choice. First Choice is the right choice. Renew and choose us. Visit selecthealthofsc.com/renew to learn more.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right. ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
That's great. That's wonderful. Yeah. And I agree with that. And I used to feel guilty about not giving my employees all the time or not giving people all my time. But then you have to realize maybe they don't want my time. Maybe they don't want to talk to me.
That's the idea. I mean, a lot of people are talking about, being burnout of Zoom or Teams. Yeah. I mean, I know the topic of today's meeting is how to ace online business meetings. And I think our first take-home message will be, don't meet if it is not absolutely necessary.
Yes, and you're saving so much time. You don't have to. I mean, some people love to travel, but you don't have to take a trip. Get on an airplane. It's maybe a 6-hour flight, 2 hours 2 hours waiting for the plane to leave, then the same thing back, and renting a car and all that stuff. When with the technology we have, all you have to do is just click a button and speak to the person immediately. I mean, meetings are becoming less and less necessary in person. And actually pretty counterproductive if you think about it. I mean, you're wasting, 3 or 4 days to visit someone in another city or another country when you could just be wasting 30 minutes, not wasting, or just spending 30 minutes talking to them. And I think technology and work should be used as a means to, of course, have self-fulfillment, be productive in life and further your career, but also to make money. And that way you can do the things that you love in your personal time. That's why we offer those 6-hour work days, because the whole goal of working is to make money, to be able to do things you love, spend time with your family and friends, go out and enjoy life and go to a vacation, go to a forest, go to the beach, go to a river and go swimming, be with nature, these kind of things. So we should not use, in my opinion, we should not use technology just to eradicate our human sensibilities, but we should use it to get things done so that we can go and be more human and spend more time with nature and our loved ones. And so, that's why I think that online meetings are really productive and intelligent thing to do.
Yeah, and also you said other people are antisocial.
Yeah, they are antisocial, but a lot of people are antisocial with people they don't know, but they love being around their family. And I've noticed this about a lot of cultures. They're like, I don't want any new friends. Their friends are their family, I'm learning there's so many different cultures that are like that. They consider their cousins their best friend. So you could think someone's antisocial, but maybe they just have enough friends already, so it's a lot of cool. Interesting stuff, but I don't think we should, I just think that, like I said, we should use technology to enhance our lives, not just to become totally dependent upon it.
Thank you very much. Well, Sean, talking about online meetings, how about accessibility? I mean, people are maybe deaf, people may speak different languages, people may be in, rural part. Not everyone has the luxury of these nice offices and broadband internet connection. So what is your take on making online meetings accessible?
This is very, very important. Accessibility is very important. This is actually the theme of 2021 for our company is accessibility. And the interesting thing is the entire industry of what we do, translation and interpreting, is accessibility. You're making understanding and language accessible to people who don't speak the language that don't speak the language that you speak. So so that it's very important to make things accessible to people who speak other languages. It's very important to make information accessible to people, and that's what a lot of things have done. And I think Google has had this as a goal. Facebook has had this as a goal: make information accessible to people. And so, if you're in this rural place in a country where there's not a stable internet connection, and there's a lot of people nowadays who don't even have a computer, and in my opinion, computers will be gone within the next 5 or 10 years. The only people using computers are going to be programmers. Everyone else is going to be doing everything from their phone, which most of them already are. So there's people with low data, like 2G still in some places, 3G in some places. And sometimes in more developed places, we have this solipsistic attitude where everything is like the way we are. Everything is, the same way it is for us, but it's not. And that's an extremely important thing when you're a localizer, a translator, or transcreator. You have to realize not everyone is like you. That is the whole point of what we do. So I have 5G on my phone. I mean, a lot of people don't have that. I have, 500 gigs of internet per second or whatever. People don't have that. So you can create accessibility on your website, on your services. Starting with the website, you can make a website that is accessible to colorblind people. You can make a website that doesn't load a lot of heavy data. Which reduces the amount of data.
Did you say hold on? Sorry to interrupt. Did you say there's a way to design your website for colorblind people?
Yes, yeah, it is colorblind.
Oh.
I'm personally not colorblind, but we are. We definitely. I believe there is a thing where colorblind people can set their browser to the colorblind setting, and it I believe. I'm not sure. I'm not very experienced, so excuse me. But I
no. I mean, I love it. I mean, you said because design your website and consider colorblind people when designing your interface. You said, and I love it.
You can make the dark grays versus light grays. So some of them see things in that way. Or dyslexic people. I believe you would want to make sure that the font is better for them, and so. Like I believe that you can if you're smart, you don't have to choose one or the other. You can make everyone happy. And so, especially with all the technology we have, those kinds of accessibilities, on top of all the accessibility that we already offer with all the translation and the culture understanding and, accessibility, people think about for example, if you're unable to walk, that's a pretty, common thing that people know. And we offer that. There's laws about accessibility in our country where buildings have to be accessible to people who are unable to walk or in wheelchairs. Now we hire people who can't walk. We hire translators who are disabled. These are just some important things. And so you don't just do it as a marketing plan for your clients, but you also do it for your employees. And that's one thing I always wanted to talk about is you should market to your employees just as much as you market to your clients. But I can talk about that later if you want, but that's it.
No. I mean, the core topic is online meetings and or business meetings. So I think it covers both meetings with your employees and also meeting with the clients. But maybe you were referring to the balance between caring for employees and caring for clients. I don't know. I mean, if you want to expand on that, I am happy.
Yeah, that was the beginning of it. And definitely when you want to make things accessible to your clients, like I was saying, and you want also things to be accessible to your employees. And that goes for a lot of things. You want to market to your clients and you want to show your clients how great of a company you are, how great your services are. But a lot of people forget the employee side. You want to also market to your employees or potential employees. You want to say, this is a great company to work for. We have a good salary. We have good benefit plans and packages, and when they're working for you, you want to make sure they're comfortable. And I always compare that to, the yin and the yang theory, the dark and the light. You want to balance them perfectly. And that's kind of like how we balance the dark and the light at our company. We're open all the time because we have people working all around the clock. And by that same token, you should balance I look at the balance because there's two main people in a company, which are the employees and the clients. and they both need to be in perfect harmony for the company to be successful. In my opinion, if you're making billions of dollars and your employees aren't happy, you're not successful. Success is when you are treating your employees and clients with respect and professionalism, and you make all the best efforts to make them both happy.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I mean, every time, I mean, this is the second time I'm talking with you, but every time we speak, I learn a lot from you, and I think we should continue these video sessions on different topics. Well, while you were talking about accessibility and remote teams, a couple of times you mentioned different cultures.
Did you miss your deadline to renew your Medicaid coverage? You can still send your completed annual review form to Healthy Connections Medicaid. You may be assigned to another health plan, but you can ask to come back to First Choice within 60 days of renewed Medicaid eligibility. It's your family. It's your choice. First Choice is the right choice. Renew and choose us. Visit selecthealthofsc.com/renew to learn more.
So maybe I want to move our discussion to caring for different cultures in business meetings. I mean, I know that you speak several languages and you are in the process of learning, I think, Mandarin at the moment.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think you are passionate for languages and cultures, but not everybody is so. So what will be your, 2 cents for people who have online meetings with different cultures?
That's a very interesting thing, and we were talking about this earlier, and I thought of a good solution. Well, when you have online meetings, and in our company, for example, we always try to celebrate and respect everyone's culture. And with online meetings, it's interesting because you could have people from different cultures. You can have someone from Saudi Arabia, and then someone from China, someone from Brazil, and and they have very, very distinct cultures. And so my idea was the way to get around that and make everyone happy is just kind of like default to logic, just be more pragmatic and more matter of fact in those type of meetings, because the goal is, let's say, okay, the goal here is to accomplish this translation and get this, these 20,000 words done by the end of the week and blah, blah, blah. You have to be more serious and pragmatic. At the same time, you kind of like show your cultural knowledge and make everyone feel welcome. The person from Saudi Arabia, Brazil, France, China, all these places, make them feel welcome. And also surround yourself with those types of people. Like we do at our company, we surround ourselves with the type of people who are welcoming and knowledgeable about other cultures. And I've done this my entire life. I used to work at the library, and I used to hang out at the library all the time. And there were different cultures there all the time. So I learned to adapt to all the cultures. And even now, to this day, what I do is when I see someone who's a recent immigrant to the United States where I live, or just in a place, where they might not feel comfortable, or they're just coming here, I try to say something to make them feel new. I met this guy from the Ivory Coast, and I started talking to him about Didier Drogba. And he's the most famous footballer from Ivory Coast. And he was like, you know Didier Drogba? And I was like, yes, I do. And he was like, his eyes lit up, and he felt so happy, that someone knew something about his country. And I could tell he eased, his blood pressure lowered, and that's what you should try to do. You don't want to overdo it and like just try to, just pretend like you know everything about their culture. But if you can say something and make them feel welcome, then I think that just makes people really happy. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, talking about accessibility, I want to announce to our viewers that, you're welcome to ask your questions anytime you want through the chat and Q&A. The microphones are muted for efficiency, but if you want to ask any questions, just shoot it. We are very flexible with our content. And as you can see, I have some notes, but we just go by the flow. So if you feel like you want to...
Give me some impromptu questions. I'll try to answer them. I like to be put on the spot.
Yeah. And also, for those who are new to Zoom, On the bottom menu, there is subtitles. If you wish to display live transcription, I think Zoom is doing a good job with their automated transcription. So if you want to
Yes.
test it, you can do that.
Yes.
Well,
And they also have the interpreting. They have conference interpreting on Zoom now too.
yeah,
And we have it. We're doing it on our app too, but it's pretty cool. Like you probably already know this, but when the speaker, like if you're in a conference, the speaker speaks and you kind of want to drown out the speaker's noise so you can hear the interpreter's noise. Zoom does that automatically. They lower the voice of the speaker, and if you're Spanish, you can hear the Spanish. If you're French, you hear the French, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a pretty cool feature they offer.
I love it. And I mean, last year in March, all of a sudden we lost 99% of all our interpreting business because we technically work on site for conferences. But then we discovered Zoom and other apps, and then we recovered most of the losses. And I think our company closed the year with nearly 1,000 events, which is cool. I mean, for us, we are 30% of our business is interpreting. So it is, and if you consider there are hundreds of languages in the world, it is not a big thing. I mean, there are companies who do maybe 50 events a day. So I mean, but for our size, it's cool. Yeah.
We're in the same boat. Like we realize, okay, we're doing a lot of business, and then we realize how big this market is, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's nothing compared to what other people are doing, and that's a good thing for the people listening, actually, to realize they're getting in a very nice industry with a lot of diverse type of projects you can do. If you love languages, everyone should be extremely encouraged to get into this industry. You can work in interpreting all different types. There's like 10, 20, 30 types of interpreting. You can do conference, simultaneous, consecutive, examinations under oath, arbitrations, interviews for insurance companies. I mean, it's endless. You could do diplomatic interpreting. I mean, and that's just the interpreting side. I mean, so it's a really nice industry to be in. And you should always surround yourself by people who are interested in this industry as well, and who are willing to push you forward and lift you up in the industry. Not any of those, people who are resistant to change or resistant to technology, stuff like that.
Talking about languages and interpretation, I mean, your head office is in the U.S. and by default, America welcomes different languages, and the government pays for interpreters and everything. It's not always the case in other parts of the world. I mean, I want to start with our experience and then ask your advice. I mean, in our experience before the pandemic, most of the interpreting jobs would be source Turkish to English, Russian, Arabic, but mostly source Turkish. But then with the pandemic, we are experiencing a totally different scenario. I mean, our clients and our local Turkish clients are calling us to set a meeting in English, Hindi, and Vietnamese.
Oh, wow.
and I think it's interesting. I mean, have you experienced this, I mean, the enrichment of the language portfolio? I mean, you may not, because since you are in the US, you are already working with hundreds of languages, but do you have any statistics of changes in language combinations?
I haven't noticed. I have noticed an increase in Hindi in English. In India, I have. I haven't noticed so much Vietnam, but United States is a little bit of a different dynamic than a lot of other countries, because there was never really a shutdown here. It was just different requirements, different health requirements and stuff like that. But I've noticed the increase. I've noticed the increase in people getting knowledgeable. And I was going to say something that is really interesting, for something that all interpreters should do, is educate the clients on the things. Even in the United States, a place where they really understand the importance of interpreting, and it's actually a law. There's a law in 1965 that was passed about, I think it's something about accessibility or equal rights, where anyone who doesn't speak a certain language by law, if they're on government property, you have to provide them an interpreter. So that's a nice law to have. For
That's
our
a nice
industry.
law to have, yeah.
Yeah, for our industry, because you just say, hey, you have to have an interpreter by law. But if they don't have that law, it's upon all of us to tell people the importance of interpreting. If you're interpreting at a hospital, you need to tell the hospital manager, hey, you need an interpreter. Even if it's for a 5-minute session, you need an interpreter. If you have someone in pre-operation room and they're in Turkey and they're here from Ethiopia and they don't know what's going on and they're going to be terrified. They need an interpreter to be there. That's accessibility. That's caring about other people. You need an Amharic or Tigrinya interpreter to be there for that Ethiopian person. It's upon all of us interpreters to educate people. And I think that's something that the entire industry is lacking, is the education part. We all know the importance of interpretation, but we need to increase the education of the people who don't. Like, for example, people who think certain, like Google Translate will work. I mean, it can for some things, but who think that will work, or people who don't even think they need an interpreter. They're just going to do hand signals to someone and they're going to understand them. The level of understanding when you're just trying to express yourself through hand signals is really low. The more educated you are, the more knowledge you have of someone's language, the more you can communicate. My friend, he was...
Did you miss your deadline to renew your Medicaid coverage? You can still send your completed annual review form to Healthy Connections Medicaid. You may be assigned to another health plan, but you can ask to come back to First Choice within 60 days of renewed Medicaid eligibility. It's your family. It's your choice. First Choice is the right choice. Renew and choose us. Visit selecthealthofsc.com/renew to learn more.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
He met a woman who did not speak English, and she spoke Spanish. I was the interpreter for them for the first year they were dating, and I actually
you joined their dates.
Yeah, I was just coming along on all the dates
fun.
interpreting. He was my best friend. She was from South America, and I would just accompany them, and I would go everywhere, and I'd say, she said this, he said this, and eventually they learned each other's language, and he learned really good at Spanish, she got really good in English, and they're still together to this day. They've been together for like 15 years now. So interpreting,
very good interpreting.
Yeah, I did some good interpreting. Interpreting can make people fall in love who don't even speak each other's language. I mean, interpreting is an amazing industry. People should love this industry. I'm passionate about it. It's amazing. So it's pretty cool.
And, talking about this, Ethiopia and, learning Amharic or other language, making it available. I think the apps, the technology helps hospitals and the police and government become more accessible, don't you think? Because you don't have to bring in the interpreter. You can call in the interpreter, and the interpreter just shows up on the app or on Zoom. Mm-hmm. And it's so practical. I think many industries are now, they knew already, but in my experience, a lot of institutions were preferring on-site interpreter. They wanted to have the interpreter in situ. But now more and more people say, well, just let's connect on the internet. Yeah. Is it happening in the US as well?
Yes, it is happening, but there's a lot of people. Hospitals and law firms are notoriously old-fashioned.
Right.
And they still use phones to call people instead of like cell phones and everything. But I don't think the human aspect is ever going to be taken out of things. It's extremely important. But in a time where people are a little bit scared of germs or whatever, it's a very good thing to have the interpreter not there, because that's one less person that's going to cause, stress or issue, or, a lot of people are kind of nervous and on edge right now about being around other people. So if you can have the interpreter on the screen, that's one less person that has to be there. So that's a really good thing for our industry. And if we can use that point and sell to people, it's great. And so, yeah, I think that, if you're in a court and you have the plaintiff, the defendant, the lawyer, the judge, the whole jury there, maybe just adding one interpreter is not really going to bother people, but it's also an extreme convenience factor. The interpreter doesn't have to worry about driving there, and they don't have to worry about calling them, and they don't have to worry about finding the interpreter. So it's in my opinion, it's probably a better decision just to do it through technology and apps online, Zoom, Skype, or the app that we made, the day interpreting app, or any of those other apps out there. They're very convenient.
Yeah, I agree. The app market is growing.
Yeah.
And I know, with the hospitals and law firms, they are old school I think in Turkey and in most parts of the world.
Yeah.
But maybe
very
also
bureaucratic and Byzantine.
Yeah, they are, and maybe there are legal requirements, and they don't want to violate any regulations, and they are very sensitive about it.
Yes, definitely, and it's fine with me. That's the thing. That's amazing. I really commend you on the way you adapted last year. That's really amazing, and I think the people who have adapted have really, really just surged in this industry.
We were quick.
Yeah, that was smart. That's smart. Always be adapting. Always be adapting. Like I was telling you earlier, don't be a Luddite. Luddite.
Yeah, you gave me that word, Luddite. What was it?
Luddite.
The old-fashioned guy, or no?
Luddite is a term that they used back in the United States for people who resisted change. They even attacked people who created new technology because they didn't want to lose their jobs or anything like that. Instead of just adapting to the world, they just tried to slow down progress, which is not going to happen. And so, yeah, I always say I'm an anti-Luddite. I'm the kind of person who adapts to technology. That's the best way, to survive. And I commend you on that, because a lot of us, you and me, and if you look at LineBridge and TransPerfect, we all made more money last year than I did. You just have to, you have to adjust. And there was a lot of opportunity, and you have to see opportunity in things.
The first half of the year for us was loss, but the second half we recovered, and our revenues were record high. It was all-time record. But I don't like to boast with that. Yeah. But I think it's about. Yeah, and I think it's our companies are similar in that sense. We have been working remotely since 2012, not as old as you, but 2000. That means 9 years now. And for us, shutting down the office, that was just unusual for people who were coming to the office. But how many of them were coming to the office on the 6th? The rest of the team have been working remotely for the past 9 years. So for them, for the linguists, for the editors, for the IT people, and for video, subtitling, dubbing, voice artists, nothing changed. They were at home, and they just remained at home. And the more jobs we brought in, they were happier. Well, I got one or two questions I must ask, but since that I see a question from Mr. Saadettin Avcılar in the Q&A. You can click on the Q&A button if you see on your screen, or I can read it to you. Do you see the question, Sean?
I can't see the question. I see the Q&A button. Let me click.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Sean. I'm also trying to learn multiple languages at the same time. What are the challenges learning different language families? That's a great question, because I did that on purpose. I purposefully learn languages from different families because I'm a weirdo. And there are people in high school or in college. Well, when I got to college, I spoke Spanish and French and English. And I was like, hey, I speak Spanish, French, and English. They're like, okay, they're all the same. They're romance languages. What's the big deal? And I got mad, and I was like, how are you going to make those? That's 3 languages. What are you talking about? And I was like, that's an accomplishment. And I said, okay, I'm going to learn something from a different language, field, a different family, like he says, Saditin Abchilara. So I learned Arabic. I went and I took 2 semesters of Arabic at the college. And then I took Arabic in Morocco. And then I took 2 more semesters when I got back. So I had about 5 semesters of Arabic total. And I said, what now? What now? I speak Arabic, so that was nice. And then, so I started to realize that it's fun to learn different languages from different families. And I noticed when I was taking classes with other polyglots, they would say stuff like, oh, I'm mixing my languages now. And I would say, well, you don't have to. I mean, you can train your mind just not to mix the languages, just like you learn to walk and chew gum and pat your head and rub your belly at the same time. You can try to learn you can try to learn to speak different languages from different fields. And I had that problem in the beginning with French and Arabic because of the mixture of cultures. There's a lot of Arabic people from Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia living in France. So they have the Frarabic, they say a lot of Arabic words in France and they say a lot of French words in Morocco. But you just have to learn to separate them in your mind. So I took German later on. Then I took Hebrew. And now I'm taking Chinese. And it's so different. But I'm noticing some similarities between Chinese and I noticed some pronunciation differences. Similarities between Chinese and French. And I noticed some structural similarities between German and Chinese. And it's really fun. It's really fun to notice those similarities. And it makes it not as hard. But with Chinese, it's harder than all the other languages I've ever learned when it comes down to writing. But I just tell myself, hey, I'm not in a rush. I'm 41 now. Maybe I won't learn Chinese until I'm 50. Doesn't matter. I don't care. I'll speak it better. If I don't start now, I'll never speak it. So it's a long answer to your question, but I'm a very overly verbose person. So there's your answer. Just try to separate the languages and don't fall for that trap where you can't speak more than 2 or 3 at the same time. You can just learn to separate them in your mind, make little compartments for them, and you'll be fine.
Thank you, Sean. And now you got a second question.
Okay.
John is asking.
John Robillard. Okay. Well, it's very important to educate people about interpreting. Well, the question is, as a Spanish interpreter, I'm wondering how we can educate people about interpreting. Thanks. And depending on where you live, that's could be a hard thing. But one thing you should do is look up that law. If you're living in the United States, look up the law where an interpreter is required. It was made in 1965, I believe. It went along with civil rights laws. And then we have a lot of information and video about interpreting. We have, you can explain to them if you want to speak to anyone, speak to the risk manager, because anyone is extremely increasing their risk if they are using a non-professional interpreter. So if they're just using a family member, you run the risk of biased interpreting and you run the risk of bad interpreting. So you tell this person, don't use a family member, don't use a friend, because they're going to be biased and we don't know if they're good. Use a professional or a certified interpreter, and you will reduce your liability. If you don't use a professional interpreter, you could be liable for a lot of things, and that person might not have insurance. And I want to bring that up too. As an interpreter, everyone should buy their own insurance plan. Companies have their insurance plans. We have insurance, but interpreters should have the insurance plan, because when you do have insurance, you will go out into the interpreting world confident and not worried and constantly nervous in the back of your head saying, oh, if I make a mistake, are they going to sue me? If you have insurance, you're not going to have to worry about that. And so you should invest in your trade, invest in all the tools you need. And one of those tools is insurance that everyone should try to have. And just keep educating people. We have videos. We have a video about a huge mistake that a hospital made by not using a professional interpreter. we need to continue to educate people. And I'm glad Mr. Wubiyar asked that question, because I really want to implore everyone to start educating people about the field.
Yeah, I mean, talking about using a family member and being biased, I remember that a Danish, I think municipality or government, they
Yeah.
made a video, and the son was interpreting,
Yeah.
and the mother was complaining, and the son never said that there was abuse and violence in the family, because he thought that was not, appropriate, because
Yeah.
they are one family, and the little boy was feeling like guilty if he translated what the mother said.
Yes.
But
Definitely.
then the session was recorded, and an auditor, I think, noticed that the poor woman was constantly complaining about domestic violence, and
Yeah.
and nobody understood her for a
Yeah.
year. For a year, yeah. I mean,
It's crazy. You have to be a machine when you're an interpreter. You can't have bias. You can't just be giving your opinions. I used to be an interpreter at a hospital, and there would be people who would be interpreting for the doctor, and the doctor would say, drink a lot of water, and the interpreter would say, drink a lot of water. Also, put some lemon in your water, or also have some more electrolytes. Like, the doctor didn't say that. Don't add anything, don't say put lemon in your water. It's not your responsibility to add things or give advice. You are not the friend of the client. You are a machine, like a calculator. It's part of the professionalism of being an interpreter. You have to be professional at all times. You speak in the first person, and you basically say whatever the client says to the patient, or the speaker says to the listener. And you take all of your bias, all of your opinions out of it.
yeah. I mean, I agree with that. But then I also think that sometimes, especially in difficult circumstances, maybe not in a hospital, but in a business meeting, I think we interpreters, we manage the tone a little bit. Sometimes with the heat of the discussion, one of the parts may be a little aggressive. And then, of course, we don't translate it with sweet words, but maybe we tone down that aggression to assertion. I mean, we sounded more assertive or serious, but not aggressive or, like attacking. I mean, would you also do that? I mean, if you were interpreting, managing the tone for a peaceful negotiations process?
I'm a very animated person, and I'm a very confident person. So if someone starts yelling, I'll interpret the yelling. If someone starts crying, I'll kind of do a crying face or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You're an interpreter. You need to interpret. That's what interpretation is. You're just like interpretive dance. You're interpreting the way a dance should be. We're interpreting the words. You want to interpret exactly what the person is saying. So yeah. And if it's a professional situation and you are interpreting that, then the client should not be getting mad at you, because all you're doing is you are a vehicle for what that person is saying. All you're doing is doing the same thing they're doing. That's my opinion. And Amina.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, there is one more question, but before I go to Amina, can I ask my question?
Yes.
I mean, sorry, Amina. Just give me a few minutes. Now it's the pandemic all around the world. Thankfully, we have vaccines and some measures, but still, the world is 7 billion people, and maybe just 5 or 10% has been vaccinated. So I think for the globe, there's still a long way to go. So in this scenario, when most of the profession is managed online, we don't go to the meetings anymore. We don't have a time for a coffee, or tap on the shoulder or make an eye contact. So what is your advice to interpreters in terms of, being ready for an online meeting, and also, still staying close with their clients? How can they do that?
Okay, well, you have to be ready for online meetings as much as possible, and also be ready for in person. I think there's different types of people out there. There are people, still having meetings, and if you are comfortable, doing something like that, then yes, that's fine. There's something for everyone out there. But also be prepared for, like I said, be prepared for the online meetings. Make sure you have all the necessary equipment, because there's a large amount of people who don't feel comfortable being in person. So have all the equipment. I have these lights here. I have these lights here to make the lighting better. So I mean, you have lights to make your light look good. Make sure you have the proper microphone. Make sure you have the proper camera. All people don't focus enough on the equipment. They just want to get going, but you have to have the proper equipment. Make sure your computer doesn't ever crash, and if you do, have a backup computer. And if your backup computer crashes, try to get accessibility to your phone. Also, make sure you have the fastest possible internet so that you can do these type of things. If you're trying to save $15 a month by having 5 gigabits on your computer, that's not a good decision. If you can pay 15 or 20 extra or $25 extra a month and get 100 or 120 or 250 megabits or gigabits, that is very advisable, because these are your tools. Like I said, any job you need to have your tools. You need to have all the proper tools. And for an online interpreter, it's proper lighting, quiet room.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus.
Tell your family that you're working and not to bother you, and doesn't mean that you can come in anytime and ask a question. Have the proper camera, internet. All these things are extremely important. So you need to be prepared for both. And if that's your bag, if that's what you want to do, go all in with that. If you feel like you want to do in-person interpreting, and that's also something you can do. So there's something for everyone in this industry. If you're a very gregarious person like me, and if you like to be around people, that's also an option. It's something for everyone. But I definitely believe that if you're doing things online, make sure you have the right equipment.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to the questions from the audience. We got 2 more.
Okay. Amina. If you are the interpreter and the speaker's message is not clear to you, do you interpret what you've heard even though it does not make sense to you? The answer is yes. I would put a little caveat in there and say, excuse me, this was unintelligible. I will interpret it at the moment. If you want to, you could be really, that might sound overly obsessive about something. If you want, you can tell the client, hold on a moment, and then ask the person to repeat themselves. But make sure that's clear to the client, so it does not look like you're speaking and conversing with the interpreter. Say, hold on a moment, I'm asking them to repeat themselves. Hello, sir, can you please repeat yourself? I did not hear you. That's probably the more practical option, or the other option is to just try to interpret something unintelligible. It will probably make you look silly. So yeah, the first option is better. If someone says something you don't understand, tell the client, hold on, I'm asking them to repeat themselves. But always make that clear, because a lot of times you could be in a courtroom where everything is being transcribed and it causes confusion. And the lawyers and the lawyers look over these transcriptions for hours, and paralegals look over these transcriptions for hours. So you have to make sure that you are covering yourself and making sure they understand you are not speaking or conversing with the client. You are just asking them to repeat themselves. So there's
okay. I got it. And there's a second question from Mr. Robiliard.
that. Okay.
Go on.
Mr. Robillard, are the main problems with an interpreter adding to something a doctor said the blurring of roles and liability for him or herself? Yes, I think it's liability, and it's also just doesn't make sense. You could be a doctor, but most likely if you're an interpreter, you're not a doctor. So the doctor says things with a reason. The doctor has been doing this for a reason. The doctor's been in this industry, has a degree for a reason. So in my example earlier, if the doctor tells the patient to drink 8 glasses of water a day, and the doctor specifically did not say put lemon in the water, he probably did that for a reason. He's probably trying to be simple. He's probably understands. He or she has really good bedside manner. So they're telling the client, just drink water, just to keep their life simple. You have no idea, and you're not supposed to try to guess what their purpose or what their reasoning is. You're not the doctor, you're the interpreter. And as hard as it can be, you have to know your role and stay in that role. Try not to add or subtract anything. That's the number one rule for interpreters. Don't add or subtract anything from the message. Transcreation is different. When transcreation, we add as much as we want, but that's a different subject.
All right, more questions are coming, sir, from Alejandra Fonseca.
Okay.
What is the best skill an interpreter can have, or the tool?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that this is probably redundant, but the ability to interpret. Everything else is ancillary. You could have a bunch of things, but I mean, you have to know the language inside and out. You should be studying the language every day. If you are, for example, I interpreted at a horse show before. I did not know anything about horses. So I studied horses for an entire week before doing this because I did not want to mess up. And every single term that I studied came up during the interpretation. So if I had not studied, I would have been lost, And when I was a medical interpreter, one time this word bone marrow came up. I didn't know how to say bone marrow, and I felt like an idiot. So I guess I learned later it was medulla ossea. But these things you have to be prepared as an interpreter. And other tools that you can have are, of course, professionalism. And something I was saying, a really good thing that a lot of people overlook are having batteries. If you're an interpreter and you have these interpreter machines with you in a conference interpreting, you should always try to have extra AA batteries or the kind of batteries you need, because I've been in many interpretations where they had not charged the equipment and the interpreter goes out, and it's just, what are you going to do if no one can hear you? The microphone goes out. So it's always nice to have a couple of batteries in your pocket. And that also makes you feel confident knowing that if this microphone goes out, I have an extra set of batteries. So that's a little trick that I learned because I used to supervise interpretations, and I noticed a lot of times the batteries went out on the equipment.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking these questions. I love them.
No, there are. I mean, those questions were great.
Yeah.
How about? I know this is obvious for most of us, but I know some of the audience are students. What is the importance of certification for an interpreter or translator?
Well, I think certification is very important. I think education is extremely important in any field. There's some people will tell you that, oh, well, I speak 2 languages, or I don't need a degree. I like degrees. I think degrees show a certain level of self-discipline, and certificates as well. And there's also a lot of clients who are not really educated on the subject, because there's a lot of different kinds of certification in the interpretation industry. And who is to say which one is valid, which one isn't, and how much weight each one has? I think that getting a certification, and just if someone asks you, are you a certified interpreter? You say, yes, I am. I have my certification. This is something you can always say. It brings confidence in yourself, and it brings confidence in your clients to work with you. And I think that's extremely important. And it also helps you gauge your level of interpretation. If you don't know how good you are, you can go say, let me try to get a certificate and see what kind of where my ranking is. And so you get the certificate and you pass and you're like, okay, I guess I'm a pretty good interpreter. That raises your self-esteem during interpretation. It raises you up and it makes you realize, okay, I am a good interpreter, and I know I am. So, and this happens in court sometimes. Sometimes the opposing counsel in an interpretation will actually try to question the interpreter, which is I really don't like, because the interpreter is supposed to be known that the interpreter is good. And so once they question you, you can come back with that confidence and say, yes, I'm a certified interpreter. Please respect my abilities and let's focus on the trial. And you have to assert yourself like that a lot of times as an interpreter. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, before moving on to the next question, I mean, I remember from my years as an academic as a university, not every student was able to become an interpreter and or a translator. And I was encouraging my students to pursue different avenues of career with their language abilities. They may not fit into a courtroom, but they can do other things. And I mean, in this online meeting scenario, we see a lot of clients requesting subtitles. Right now, we see a live subtitling of Zoom, but then this also demands post editing.
Yes.
So maybe I mean this is my opinion, but then I also want to know of your experience. Maybe we can encourage our students and the young generation to understand that there are other possibilities. You don't have to become a translator. I mean, you can be a online meeting host or organizer or technical support person, or I mean, I don't know. I mean, I gave example as this, captions. Do you want to expand on this before we move on to Roman Dalkarman's question? I mean, the career paths with language abilities, for the students who now learn languages or translation in the industry. What different avenues do you see?
For sure. That's a great point. And the interesting thing about translation and interpreting is that you can basically work in any industry. You can work in selling shoes. You can work in chemical engineering. You can work in robotics, artificial intelligence. Every single industry is touched by interpreters and translators in this entire world. So there's going to be always something for you, whether it be your interests or your abilities. So let's say you are more interested in technology and you're a developer. Well, you can work in website localization or video game localization. So if you're good with PHP, HTML, you can learn about the different plugins that are needed for translation of websites like WPML, the different types of search engine optimization using translation. If you're more medically inclined, and let's say you went to medical school and you decided that you didn't want to be a doctor anymore, well, you can be a medical interpreter, and maybe that's something you like more. Or let's say you don't like translating. For me, for example, I translated a lot. I realized translating I like doing it, but not all the time. And I realized, well, I want to start managing projects. Well, you can be a project manager. You're still using your languages all the time. I mean, there's always something for you. You can be a project manager. You can be a localizer. You can be a video game localizer, a subtitler. If you love audio visual marketing, you like creating marketing material, you can create multilingual marketing material. There's something for everyone in this industry. So if you love languages and you have a trade, you can definitely incorporate it into this industry.
Thank you so much. Well, Sean, I know your time is precious, but I see one comment and question in the chat and one question in the Q&A. Do you want to take them, and then maybe then we can close the session?
For sure. No problem at all. I love it. From Roman del Carmen. How long did it take you to be an interpreter? And that's a great question, because I don't know sometimes how people are interpreters if they haven't been doing this their whole life. I started learning Spanish when I was 8 years old. And for me personally, that's the only language that I can interpret. I was able to start interpreting like small things whenever I was like 20 or 21. And so I started really getting into Spanish whenever I was in high school. From 13 to 18, I was learning Spanish in high school. Then I took it in college. So I would say it took me at least 10 years to be a good interpreter. And that means every day of your life, you're thinking in two languages. You're always thinking, how would you say this in this other language? How would you do this? You have to be the person who's obsessively always thinking about how to say something in two languages, how to properly say it. And you have to think on your toes. You have to constantly be thinking. And I used to do that all the time. And so I would say, yeah, I mean, for me, it took me at least 10 years to be a good interpreter. And I think you could possibly do it in less if you're doing it all the time. But most interpreters, in my opinion, are people who were born into a family that is speaking one language and they grew up in a country speaking another language. So their entire life, from the moment they are born to the time they grow up, they are interpreting for their parents, they're interpreting for their family. So interpreting is a lifelong thing. And if you started when you were little, those are usually the best interpreters.
Thank you, sir. Do you want to check on the chat? I see a comment from Mr. Danilo Cheranic.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yes. Yeah. One of the reasons why machine interpretation solutions can't take place of human interpreters is humans' ability to interpret emotions, moods. Do you think it is harder to interpret those online? Yes, I do. And I was watching and researching a lot of studies and talks this morning about elocution. And I just elocuted right there. Elocution, like when you are putting emphasis on certain words, you are creating a different emotion in that word. You're creating a different intent. Like you can say, "Are you going home?" Or you can say, "Are you going home?" Those have two totally different meanings. Are you going home is just like asking, are you going home it sounds more accusative. Like I'm accusing you of something, So, yeah. Or you want to say, are you going home? So that leaves that elocution leaves the idea that you could be going home or maybe it's somewhere else you're going. Where's the doubt here? So you can have emotions interpreted in the tone of your voice, but also in the way you talk. The closer and the further you get away from someone, the way everything you do, there's body cues that go on, and a lot of those things get lost. But maybe we will evolve to adapt to those body cues or the lack thereof. We might just adapt. And I mean, like I was saying earlier, everyone always talks online about how there's no sarcasm font. I do think that's one thing that's lacking in the world is font and language to express intent. And that's a hard time when you're emailing and texting people and stuff like that. So that's a big gap in the world right now. And I think within the next 5 or so years, there will be font created to express intent, sarcasm font, angry font, all these things. Personally, I always want my employees and colleagues to know that I'm not angry. So I always put a smiley face at the end of all my sentences because I just want people to understand my intent. And so I always put a little smiley face every time. But that means if I don't put the smiley face, maybe they'll be like, okay, what's wrong? What's happening? But I don't know.
Well, I think smileys have transformed the way business communications flow. Before then, we had to write long entry, sandwich style paragraphs, playing nice with so many sweet words and then putting the serious message in between and then finishing with, some other nice words. But now we just say what we want to say and then add a few smiley faces.
Yeah,
I think other people do that.
Good.
Yeah. Well, Sean, it's been an hour and 15 minutes, and it was a huge pleasure to have you. I'm going to share the recording with your team, and audio and video. And I also will publish the audio in multiple podcast platforms. Before, my questions have finished, and I think you have touched upon so many great topics to enrich remote work and online meetings. With that, I would like to have your closing remarks and then end the session.
Okay, well, I'm very honored to do this. My goal is to constantly be learning more about this industry and also imparting all my knowledge on other people, and just to help this industry grow and help all translators and interpreters, as well as help clients, learn about what we do and how passionate we are, and how linguists are so interesting and we're so different, and we have so much knowledge about the world because of all the languages that are always in our heads. I encourage all translators and interpreters to focus on technology, focus on all your knowledge of translation, but also focus on technology. Learn more about translation memory, learn more about the tools out there, learn more about neurolinguistic programming, learn all about these things. Just learn and move forward, innovate, constantly be improving yourself, always be learning, and try to even learn a new language if you want, or learn a new programming language, but just always try to be a better person every day.
Thank you so much, Mr. Can Hopwood. It was a huge pleasure. I wish all the best to America and hope to talk to you soon in another show.
In Turkey as well.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day ahead. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.